Hello and welcome to my first YouTube video where I'm going to talk about how I produce my kick drums. This is gonna be a tutorial. I'll probably make this a series where I talk about how I make certain sounds, and I'm gonna talk about my favorite ways of using FL Studio to create the music that I do. So let's just insert a new instance of Citrus. You can basically use any synthesizer to make a kick drum. I just prefer to use Citrus. So I make the kick from scratch. I don't use samples. And what you do, or what I do, is first of all, let's do a new pattern so we don't have anything in here. I like to fill this like this and also have a little kick roll in the end so you can get an idea of how your kick sounds. And if we play this now, let's also put this in our mixer first. So we have it here on 4. This is our kick drum, which is now called Citrus, and it's a nice bright orange, like my t-shirt. And now we are going to put this to the default setting, which creates the most annoying sound in the world. I wouldn't mind dancing to that for 12 hours, right? Okay, so first of all, this is a kick drum, so we need bass. So the first thing we do is we pitch this down to like 0.5. And this now sounds like this. Now that's more like it, right? But of course that's not a kick drum, that's just a tone. And we want a kick drum. So what we do to change a tone to a kick drum is we add a pitch envelope, which means we're going to modulate the pitch over time from the start of the signal, of the input, to the end of the input. We're gonna influence how these changes are made. And more specifically, we are going to make it so we have a high frequency at the start, which is our punch of the kick, and a fast sweep downwards to the low frequencies, which gives that nice oomph to a kick drum. And so we are gonna enable the pitch envelope and change it so we have something going down. So right now it sounds like this because this goes up, right? It sounds like we have woo woo. Yeah, nice. And now, excuse me. Yeah, that's my breakfast. I'm gonna change this envelope so it goes down like this. And now we're like in Thunderdome. Or more like we're outside Thunderdome and we can't get in. Because this is very like muddy and very like damp, and there's not a lot of high frequencies going on in this. But it already sounds a little bit like a kick drum, doesn't it? And that's nice. What we do now is we change the shape of this wave to create a little more high frequencies. This is not only so our kick sounds better, it's also so we can actually hear better what's going on. And I sometimes like to use this setting on to like find out what pitch my kick is. So because with this it's very hard to define, like it's somewhere like that's like the tone, but it's really hard to define. But if you do this, now we have like this, we really hear the pitch of the kick a lot better because there's more overtones. Yeah, so we're gonna use these three little fucking knobs. So we have changed these 3 a little bit, and now it sounds like this. Yeah, sounds like shit. So we're gonna change it more. But this is like this stepping stones, you know, like one step after the other. You can't make it great pitch. Yeah, of course, you can use samples. You can't just use samples. You can't just get really great kick samples. and put them in your tracks. But for me, every time I try to use like a sample as a kick, which happened a few times, I end up changing it so much that it doesn't sound like the original sample anymore. Like, first of all, it's completely different kick than it was at the start. And before I do that, I can just like create my own like sample. And like for every track I do, I sometimes use presets that I created myself for kicks, but also very rarely like I'd say like almost like 19 out of 20 times when I start producing a track, I produce the kick drum. And I like doing that because it just connects me with the music more. And like the kick is the most important part of any tech track, in my opinion. So starting with that gives you a really nice bass. Pun intended. Okay, so now we're gonna change this pitch envelope because it's too slow. If you listen to this, it's like... It sounds like, I don't know. Doesn't sound great. So we're gonna make this a little snappier, and there's... like you can change this. This is like personal preference, how fast you make this go down or how slow. But if you do this, it's not gonna be a kick. It's just gonna be annoying. And so pull this down, and we're just gonna play this kick and see how far we can actually pull this down and how it sounds. Yeah, I think that's probably where we want to be, somewhere around there. Right. Now, we also need to make sure that this kick lands at a nice frequency. And what I mean by that is gonna be visualized with using a parametric equalizer. So in this equalizer, you can see the frequencies of the sound that you're playing. And what we can see here is that our kick is landing like somewhere around here. So it's like somewhere around, it's 66, 70 hertz. And that's very high. That's almost not sub bass anymore. It's between sub bass, and sub bass is the thing where you can't really tell what frequency is being played, but you can really feel it. And especially on big speakers, this is the frequencies that's really important. And in my experience, you want to make this as low as you can while still being able to hear it. And if the sub bass of your kick lands anywhere around like 40 to 55 hertz, I'd say, you're doing great. Or I think 50 is also still great. But you should always aim for those frequencies as your bass tone. And that most of the time that means that your song is gonna be in the mode or in the key of like F minor or something. Because F to G have like as low frequencies, these notes have as low frequencies like this 40, 50, 60 hertz. All right. And how do we take a kick and make it lower? Of course, we can just pitch it down, but that's boring. There's this awesome way in Citrus of doing this, which is the PE knob right here, which stands for pitch envelope. And what that does is it basically changes the range of this pitch envelope. So if we turn this up, it's gonna stretch it, which means the highest frequency is going to be higher and the lowest frequency is going to be lower. So it's going to make it deeper and punchier at the same time, which is exactly what we want. So we are going to turn this magic knob now while looking at our parametric equalizer, which now both of these are too big because I was like, yeah, I'm gonna make it big. Yeah. Okay, now we can see both. And let's look at this parametric equalizer. We're gonna change this knob until our bass tone of our kick drum reaches like around 40 hertz or something. Okay, so let's do that. Now this is already something you can dance to. Like that sounds good. All right. Next thing, let's also add a volume envelope to get rid of the bass tone at the end, because most of the time you're creating your bass line with another synthesizer than a kick drum. And if you don't have like a kick that's also the bass line, which is a lot the case in like acid core and tribe and stuff. If you have an offbeat bass line, that's what I'm trying to say, which is most of the time the case for my tracks. You're gonna want to cut this off before it reaches half of the beat, because that's when your bass line starts. So it sounds like this. Oh wait, it's actually, I'm stupid. It's actually here, yeah. So this is actually it. But I just see something. Yeah. Oh, we're in the tribe zone now. I'm fucking this up majorly. Yeah, somewhere around here is where you wanna be. Yeah, let's keep it like that for now. It's not going too great, but I don't want to spend too much time on this now because I just want to explain it. Usually it's a little finicky. You play around with these until you find what sounds best. And that can take anywhere from like 5 minutes to an hour or 2 or 3 or a day or a week. But it doesn't matter. It's the process that matters, and having fun with your friends in front of a big sound system. Okay. So next thing we're going to do, holy shit, I'm getting sidetracked, is equalizing. Put a high pass on anything, basically, yeah, on everything. Now you're gonna be, maybe if you're a beginner, you're gonna be like, why would you put a high pass filter on a kick drum? I want this to be bass heavy. Well, you actually can't hear anything below 30 Hertz. And what these signals below 30 Hertz do is they affect how compression that you're going to add later affects the tone. And you don't want that. It's just low rumble that you can't hear, but it still affects your mix, and it clouds your mix. And it makes everything quieter because there's information in your signal, and there only can be a certain amount of information in your signal. So you can't get louder than 0 dB. And if you leave these frequencies in your signal, everything else is going to sound quieter as a result. So cut off as much as you can, basically. And since our kick drum is landing at 40 Hertz, where are we going to put this cutoff? Right, at 40 Hertz. Did that affect the sound in any way? No, but it will make it louder later. Okay, next thing when equalizing a kick is 300 Hertz is a very unpleasant frequency in a kick drum, first of all. Second of all, it's also one of these frequencies that if you have the kick drum really loud on 300 Hertz, you can't really put a lot of other sounds in it, and like the punch of the snare, for example, is something that's sometimes in the low mid-range. A lot of like atmospheric pads, the low mid-range is important. Also bassline, sometimes the bassline is important in like the low mid-range. Oh my god, I'm burping so much. We're going to see how this sounds when I put away the pull away or cut away the 300 Hertz frequencies. So as you can hear, it's a lot cleaner. The sound is just a lot cleaner, and you can even go as far as doing a band stop, which completely cuts out this frequency, and then it sounds like this. And this is awesome. And if you want more like snappiness, more of that like high frequency at the start, more of that like you can also boost 5000 hertz. But that's basically, I could make this a preset because I always do it like this. Sometimes if I have like other synths that need to be somewhere and I have the feeling that the kick drum is covering it, I do stuff like this and cut out a different part of the frequency. And you can do this just to make the kick sound. Yeah, you can just change that around until the kick sounds like you want it to sound. So next thing is it's pretty quiet in here, right? So the way we make this louder is we use a wave shaper, which is basically distortion, saturation, soft distortion. And that doesn't only make it louder, it also compresses it a little bit. And it also adds a lot of high frequencies, which we want in our kick drum. You don't want a kick drum to sound like you're standing outside of the club. So I'm just gonna press play and pull up this. What the hell is going on? Wave shaper. Let's see how it sounds. That's okay. All right. Next thing we have these. I don't know if you can hear it, but like at the tail of the kick drum, so not the snap in the beginning, but everything that comes after it, it sounds like kind of noisy, kind of breathy, kind of airy. It has like this weird quality to it that doesn't sound clean or as clean as I'd like it to. And you can choose to leave it in there because in some cases like this is really a great thing to have in your kick. If you're doing like a really raw track, this can be a really good way of making it sound even more raw. But if you want to get rid of that, best thing you can do is like just put a filter envelope on it in Citrus itself. And how you do it is like you just like at the moment we are just using operator 1, which is getting output, so this is on. Yeah, we want operator 1 to go through filter 1, so we turn on this knob, and we want this signal, this filtered signal, to be output. And then we don't need that output anymore, because then we would have two outputs overlapping each other, which is too much, of course. And if you do that, we now have a filtered kick. So just that already sounds like muddy, and we don't want it. So just put the cutoff up. That's nicer. And then we have an envelope here again, as you can see, env. And we want a cutoff envelope, which we are going to basically shape like the other two. We have like a volume envelope now, we have a pitch envelope, and we have a cutoff envelope. And all three are basically shaped the same way. But the cutoff envelope has to be a little bit like heavier than the volume, because otherwise we can't get rid of the breathiness. And we also want this to act 100% of the way. Then we press the tempo knob, so it's not only activated but also synced with the tempo of our project. And that's a lot cleaner, okay? And now, like the very high frequencies, maybe also a little bit too high, So we are going to change that as well. I think I'm also gonna make the pitch envelope a little bit snappier. Yeah, that's a kick drum. Of course, this is now a really soft kick drum, the way it turned out, but you can make this as hard as you want. Basically, if you take the pitch envelope and leave it a little bit higher, take the filter off or make it less aggressive, put more distortion on it, leave the volume envelope a little bit longer like this, you're gonna get a heavier kick. But like lately the sound that I've been enjoying is just this clean and snappy bass heavy like kick drum. And that's basically it, basically. But there's one more thing, which is kind of lazy, but I always do it. I just have to admit it. I use presets when I use compression because I'm not good at progression. Progression. I'm not good at compression. That's what I'm talking about, compression. But I like using Maximus on my mix. And there's a really great preset in here, which is conveniently called kick pump, because that's exactly what it does. It just makes your kick better. It just makes your kick sound better. So just like put this preset on it and instantly you have this. So you have the kick without the compression. And you have the kick with the compression. It seems like a small thing, but that like little bit of extra cleanliness, if I can call it that, is like it's worth a whole ton of things. Okay, and that's now basically it. Yeah, you like in some sentences, in some certain circumstances, that's weird to say, I like to add reverb on my kick. And you will think, oh my god, why do you put reverb on your kick? That's gonna make it muddy. Well, we're gonna cut off the low frequencies of the reverb, which is, first of all, really important. Second of all, we are going to put the decay down to like 0.1 seconds. And third of all, we are going to make it really quiet. So it's just this really silent, breathy thing that you have at the end of the kick, if you can hear it. Here's without it. And that's also only in certain, if your mix seems empty or your kick seems too dry, you can try adding a little bit of reverb. Most of the time I don't do this anymore though, so let's get rid of it. And then the next thing, which is the last trick I'm going to show you, which is also why this is called kick bass tutorial, is what I like to do in a lot of cases is I use the same instead of citrus to design my bass line. Then I use so my offbeat bass line that I use to make my kick drum. And that ensures that the kick drum is perfectly in tune with the bass line. And that's important. And it's more important than a lot of people realize. Because if you just pull in a sample of a kick drum and make your bass line and don't pay attention to what tone it is, what frequency it is in, and your kick drum and your bass line are out of tune, you are just like, there's the flow of your track could be a lot better and everything could fit a lot nicer together if you just like paid attention to that. Because if your kick is in tune with your bass line, it's a way smoother experience. And this ensures that it's perfectly in tune, which is hard to do with samples. Getting a kick perfectly in tune with a bass line, I think, if the kick drum is a sample in the first place, getting it perfect is like almost impossible. But with this method, it isn't. This is perfectly in tune bass line with kick drums, and that's a little secret of mine. Even though it seems like scruffy, it seems a weird thing to do. But just hear me out, dude. You change this envelope. So now we have the same envelope as before, right? Now we're gonna pull this here a little bit, and this is like where our bass line would be normally, right? So what we're going to do is we're just gonna do this, okay? We're making the volume go up again, so we have the deep tone of the kick drum going out, going away, and then coming back. And that sounds like this. Can you hear it? I may have to change the filter a bit so you can hear it better. There we go. And like a whole bunch of my tracks, I made the bass line like this, like Skip and Gehenna and Fata Morgana and Kudera, and yeah, a lot of tracks just use this method of doing the bass line. The only problem with this method is that you have way too much sub bass in your bass line if you do this. And listening on big speakers to bass line you create like this, and you have like really you have it in the same mixer channel basically as your kick drum, and that's not optimal. So the last thing that I always do when this is getting problematic, when I see, okay, there's like way too much sub bass in this bass line and it's drowning out my kick drum, it's drowning out everything else in the mix, what I do is I go back to my channel rack, and I clone this boy, yeah? So now we have 2 times the same citrus instance with the kick we produced previously 2 times. I do this, fill the same steps as before. I put this to a different mixer track, yeah? Which we can now rename this, okay? So this is our kick, right? This is our kick. Awesome. And this is our bass. Cool. And now all we have to do is we go into the kick, which is this, and we pull away this. Yeah, now we have only the kick on this channel. And then we take this and pull away this. And now it's only the bass on this one. Also, it's a little quieter because it's not going through the same mixer track as our kick. But now what we can do is actually change how our bass line sounds in a separate channel from our previous, and you can also change the waveform of it to make it almost sounds like Skip all of a sudden. Yeah. And then the last thing I do to bind everything together is, you know what, I'm gonna make a separate video on bassline editing and what comes after I do this. But that's basically how I produce my kick drums. And I produce all of my kick drums like this. And the ones I don't are very rare. And I hope you learned something. I hope I wasn't too chaotic, because that's just who I am. I get sidetracked really easily and probably talked about a lot of unnecessary stuff here and didn't mention a lot of really necessary stuff. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed, and I'm gonna see you next video when I'm going to be explaining how I edit my bass lines and how I make them melt into the kick drum better. Let's call it that. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed. See you next time.